Later this month at Edgbaston, this ground will be hosting an historic event with women's cricket part of the Commonwealth Games at the big stage here in Birmingham. Every match will be live and available to watch on the BBC iPlayer, BBC Sport website, with the best of the action on BBC One and BBC Three as well. And of course, we'll have commentary here on TMS. It starts with Australia against India on July the 29th, with England's first match here against Sri Lanka on the 30th. We can talk to the former England spinner Holly Colvin, who is, let me get this right, the sport competition manager for the Commonwealth Games.
Hi.
Congratulations.
Good afternoon.
Lovely to see you again.
Yes, it's nice to be back.
How long ago did you retire now, by the way?
Well, my last game for England was November 2013, so coming on nearly 10 years.
Good grief. And in that time, you've gone off and worked in Dubai, you've worked at the ICC, and now you're here with the Commonwealth Games. And it's a massive tournament. It's one of the things it's doing is delaying the start of the Women's 100 for a kick-off. But tell us about the teams and how it's structured. Who are the 8 teams we're expecting to see playing?
Well, first of all, they're the best 8 teams in the world. You've got the usual suspects, the likes of obviously the host England, Australia, India, New Zealand, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. But instead of the West Indies, you've got Barbados coming and playing in, I guess, their official first T20 international on the circuit. So there'll still be world-class players in that team, you know, the likes of Hayley Matthews, Deandra Dottin, you'll still see them, and there'll be definitely a competitive team. So it will be all the best sides in the world here in Birmingham coming for the Commonwealth Games.
These are all official T20 internationals as well, aren't they? So these all add to the record of everybody who's playing,
yes,
I presume.
Absolutely.
So how did you come by the 8 teams? Is there a qualification process?
Yeah, so a while ago, when I was still back in the ICC in Dubai, there was a qualification process by ranking. So as of the 1st of April in 2021, we took the top 6 teams plus the host England to automatically qualify. West Indies was one of those teams in the top ranked teams. So then they selected Barbados to represent them as winners of their domestic tournament, which was quite a while ago because of COVID. And then there was a Commonwealth Games qualifier in January of this year, of which Sri Lanka won that. So,
and if people are wondering why it has to be Barbados and not the whole of the West Indies, it's because, of course, the West Indies themselves are individual nations within the Commonwealth Games, aren't they? Just as England, Northern Ireland, Wales and Scotland compete.
Absolutely, yes, that's correct.
So, it's a quick tournament. What's the format? How's it working?
It's pretty simple. There's 2 groups of 4, and then the top 2 teams from each group go through to the semi-finals. The winner of the semis play in the gold medal match, and the losers of the semi-finals go into the bronze medal match. It's as simple as that.
That is very simple, but you've got to get through these games in, how long is it, about 9 days or something?
Yeah, it's a very short competition schedule in 11 days. So we've got 16 games across the 11 days, so it's going to be quite condensed and compact, but nothing the girls aren't used to. So it'll be fantastic to see it all come to fruition finally. Double
headers.
Yes.
All being played at Edgbaston. So obviously the very first thing that comes to my concerned mind is the Groundsman, because you've got to get 16 matches in 11 days. How are they doing that?
Yeah, so it's been a long conversation with the Groundsman, and I think, to be fair, Edgbaston is one of the best grounds for creating atmosphere and creating good pitches. We're lucky that we're able to play on hybrid surfaces in international women's cricket, so we'll be making use of that and playing on hybrid pitches, which deteriorate at a slower rate.
Explain what a hybrid pitch is for our listeners.
So I'm not a groundsman, so do forgive me, but it's basically where artificial sort of grass as such, tiny little blades of artificial grass almost weaved into the turf. So basically it binds the soil and the grass together so that the pitch, as you may see over the next 5 days, deteriorates and cracks. It kind of holds it together. So I guess with the combination of girls having smaller feet, for example, you don't have big, size 11 feet coming down and bowling the ball and making as much mess as the men do. The women are slightly more tidier, I'd say. That we're confident that we'll be able to produce some great pitches across the entire competition.
And I mean, that's absolutely true. I remember I can't remember, was it at Taunton, perhaps, a test match played at Taunton, and I remember Charlie Dagnall doing a pitch report on the 4th day, and it was still pretty pristine, actually, not even much in the way of footmarks. So that's one of the many benefits of women's cricket, the other one being the over rates, which are exceptionally good. So you're going to get through these games. But so for people who want to come and see, Do you buy a ticket per game, or do you buy a ticket for the day?
So we're doing something slightly different in the Commonwealth Games, and it's a ticket per match. So every single ticket is still available. So we've got really good selling rates for the final matches, but there's still some available. But also for the preliminary stages, we welcome more people in. So games are at 11 o'clock in the morning for you'll get that game. We'll clear out the crowd and get a whole new crowd back in for the start of the evening game, which is a 6 p.m. start. The medal matches are an hour earlier, so they're 10 o'clock start and a 5 p.m. start.
Oh, so you've got a real gap, and then the second game will then presumably be under lights for at least probably the last hour of it or so.
Yes.
The lights will really have taken over.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that creates that bit of atmosphere, doesn't it? When you've got the floodlights on, you've got a great crowd in, and it'll be great for people to see women's cricket with a full crowd in centre stage.
The players themselves, are they going to be part of the athletes' village, or are they going to be in a sort of separate place? Or are they going to muck in exactly the same way as other Commonwealth athletes? Yeah,
so we've got athletes. We've got sort of a multi-athletes village solution, because we've got people down in Warwick for some of the competition down there. There's obviously people at the NEC, so near sort of the Birmingham airport, and some villages in the Birmingham city centre itself, so University of Birmingham being one of them as well. So yeah, they will have access to the villages. They'll be staying in a village themselves, and be able to obviously mingle with multiple different athletes across different disciplines. So it's fantastic to be able to have that opportunity as well, and be part of something bigger than just a single sort of cricket event in itself.
You'd have loved to have done that, wouldn't you? I mean, because that's something that cricketers actually, I noticed this when I went to Sports Personality of the Year a few years back, that the cricketers seldom get to spend time with other sports stars because of the nature of the game. You're off touring or whatnot. And it's a game that doesn't really lend itself to blending particularly with other sports. But I guess this is a really good opportunity just to sort of see how other people go about their work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the nature of people who kind of participate in team sports as well. You get out and about, you socialise, and I think being able to also, there might be opportunities to see other sports, sort of get their hands on tickets for other sports as well. So there's plenty of sport to see around the city. It's not just obviously cricket in Edgbaston. You've sort of got beach volleyball and basketball and wheelchair basketball 3x3 right in the city centre. You've got Arena Birmingham hosting all the gymnastics. So there's plenty in this vicinity to go and see, as well as the cricket.
Are you just involved in the cricket, or are you involved in other sports as well?
I am just involved in the cricket, thank goodness. So
that's more than enough, is it?
Yes, absolutely. Imagine. So I guess my role is to ensure that basically all the cricket regulations, so basically the ICC is kept happy, which is a good role for me, because I'm working with some of my old colleagues, which is great, but making sure that basically the sport and the field of play runs smoothly and everything else works around it. So off the back of this, a couple of thoughts obviously occur. Firstly, do you ever see maybe a men's Commonwealth Games of cricket, or at least the men participating in the Commonwealth Games, and what the challenges would be around that? I'm thinking, because I suppose the facilities is as much as a problem as anything, so you probably need a city that had at least 2 decent-sized cricket grounds. Yeah, so I know that obviously the next Commonwealth Games is in Victoria, in Australia. So obviously a cricket playing nation. I know there's in discussions around cricket being involved in that Commonwealth Games, whether it's just women's only again, or whether it's men's and women's. I know those conversations need to be had between the Commonwealth Games Federation and the ICC. Obviously, I'd love to see both men's and women's cricket in the next Commonwealth Games. And there's certainly, hopefully this is kind of the success story that really inspires them to keep the sport in the games and grow it to a men's competition. So yeah, there is the reality of needing an extra facility in order to do that, and being able to fit it in obviously the international calendar, which is a lot more condensed for men than women at the moment. Yes,
I guess it is, but if you're managing to get through this tournament in 11 days, then that does open up a possibility, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It's short, it's sharp, it's condensed, and it's part of a wider programme. So yeah, only 11 days required. Then if anything's got a chance, that does, I guess.
Now, the other question that obviously springs to mind is, can this be seen as a sort of a stalking horse for the Olympics? Because it's marvellous that the Commonwealth Games is doing this, but many of the countries in the Commonwealth play cricket. It's part of a legacy of being Commonwealth countries, don't they? Whereas the Olympics is sort of that opportunity maybe to spread the game to countries that aren't in the Commonwealth, like China, perhaps, a bit more from the United States, because they're terribly competitive. They want their gold medal. Can you see this sort of being a sort of dry run or a blueprint for how it might work in the Olympics?
Yeah, I absolutely see this as a kind of blueprint. The planning that's gone into this games will absolutely lend itself to any multi-sport games, whether it's another Commonwealth Games or whether it's an Olympics. And I think part of the reason that I took this job in the first place and left the ICC to work here was actually to create a legacy, because it's the first time really, and I'm no offence, but I'm not really counting 1998 in Kuala Lumpur, because the game has moved on a long since then. But yeah, to create sort of a legacy and a plan that cricket can find that place in a multi-sports games in the future. And I'd love it to be in the next Olympics. Well, Paris is too late, obviously, but into LA or even across to Australia. I think it's in Brisbane in 32. So there's every chance, and it's great to kind of go first as the Commonwealth Games this month it is. So
I mean, I wonder if the format for an Olympics might need to be tweaked a bit. So maybe T10. Would that, because obviously you've got a lot more countries who have pre-qualifying as well, I guess. But if you want to spread that message out and get involvement from the bigger countries like China, which would be an extraordinary prize, wouldn't it? It'd be a sort of linking country between Australasia and into the Indian subcontinent. Something like T10 might work better. I don't know. I mean, the issue that you'll always have with the Olympics, would it be that the cities that win them, let's say, Tokyo, tricky to get cricket stadia? Is there something very specific about cricket stadium that makes it harder to sort of make that a regular event, cricket in the Olympics?
Oh, this is a very difficult question. I think the reality is there's that sort of tension between wanting an established international format in a multi-sports games that's recognised, it's played internationally, versus the practicalities of being able to actually fit it into a schedule and being able to host it. And there's all talk about sort of right-sizing sports to fit within multi-sports games. So you've always going to have that battle around what's the most appropriate format of the game to put into a multi-sports games. Now, those conversations, again, are going way above my head. And I think, for me, personally, my own personal opinion is, I guess, cricket is cricket. And I feel like the 100 has shown that, to me, it just looked like cricket on the field of play. And yes, it was played in a slightly shorter amount of time than T20. So I would love to be in a situation where cricket is in the Commonwealth Games, whether it's T20, whether it's T10, whether it's played on, new technology has come out in the next 10 years that allow us to play on great pitches for 5 days in a row. I think technology is something that will be really on our side. So I haven't really answered your question, but I'd just love to be able to find a format of cricket that brings the best players in the world to an Olympics and to future Commonwealth Games as well.
Well, you've offered hope there, because I've always been an advocate of cricket in the Olympics, because I'd see it as a way of spreading the game much more rapidly, because a country like China would probably get behind it if they thought there were medals involved, and it was quite tricky to break into China from the place we're at now, it seems to me. Now, you mentioned the 100 and women's cricket. You said you retired in 2013. In those 9 years, central contracts, the 100 has happened. England's women have won the World Cup in front of 27,000 people at Lord's, one of the most magical, extraordinary days. You've seen the MCG packed for the World T20 final. Can you quite believe what's happened in the last 9 years?
No, is the short answer. I didn't really think when I was sort of playing, I didn't really think I'd see a lifetime where we'd have women's cricket that was professional, I guess, let alone, a completely packed MCG with nearly 84,000 or so fans in there. It was absolutely incredible. And I think I definitely had a sort of real pinch me moment, and I think it was actually in 2017 when I remember just before the start of play, I was in the media centre at Lords, and I was looking over to the North Gate, which is up to the St John's Tube, and I remember seeing a queue as far as I could see up the road of people trying to get in the stadium, and we'd proved a lot of people wrong that didn't think that we could sell out Lords for a Women's World Cup final. And then there was this kind of second pinch me moment where I've never ever had a game of cricket where there was an atmosphere quite like it. Normally you have that sort of hum of a cricket crowd that it's evident in Test match cricket, but this was silence. So when, Anya was at the top of her mark, ready to run into bowl, you could hear a pin drop. It was silent, and I've never had a crowd like it. And then there was this eruption of whether it was a dot ball or whether it was a near miss or whether it was a run. There was it's to this day that moment stayed with me, and I think that's an interesting type of crowd, because I think we might see similar in the Commonwealth Games, because there were a lot of people that came to Lords in 2017 who maybe hadn't been to Lords for the first time. There was a lot younger crowd, there were a lot more families that came, and they were really, really into the cricket, and it wasn't just this hum of having a good day out, they were there to watch it. So I think we might expect some sort of similar atmosphere as well at the Commonwealth Games.
Well, listeners, dear listener, I know there are plenty of you out there who'll be listening who are big fans of women's cricket, and it is the fastest growing aspect of cricket in this country, the participation of women in cricket and the spectators going up in numbers at all times. So I'm going to mark your cards with some big days, big games. Kicks off with Australia against India. That's right, at 11 o'clock in the morning. That evening, Barbados play Pakistan. I'm looking down for England's first game is the very next day, the 30th. That's a day-nighter. Now that could very well be an occasion. So what day of the week are we talking? Can you remember?
That would be Saturday.
A Saturday, day-nighter, 6 o'clock. It's a no-brainer. England v Sri Lanka. Who else is in England's group? South Africa are in England's group. And New Zealand are in England's group. India against Pakistan. Absolutely massive game. That's on the Sunday. That's in the morning. So I can imagine, I mean, that could get a huge atmosphere, especially in Birmingham. It could be a very, very fine occasion. And Pakistan's cricket has been improving a fair bit recently. I thought they performed pretty well in the last World Cup, actually, without quite getting the luck they might have had.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the Women's World Cup in New Zealand was an absolute sign of how the game is becoming more deep. I was going to say, is the talent around the world. It is definitely improving, and people are getting closer. It's getting more competitive, and I think T20 will even heighten that even further.
The final, by the way, I should give you the semi-final. The semi-final, should England qualify for it, will be on the following Saturday, which is the 6th of August, and the final and the bronze medal match are on the Sunday. So there's absolutely no excuse not to come down here. Holly Colvin, thank you ever so much for joining us. It's been a delight finding out about this. All the very best of luck with it.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure you're about to go through a lot of organisational pain, but as long as you can make sure that our crack commentary team of Melissa Story and Jeff Lemon, and most importantly Jonathan Agnew, can find a parking space.
That's all that matters, Holly.
That's
a lovely conversation. I just need to know where I'm going to park.
I will let you know and come back to you.
You're a star. Thank you, Holly. That's all that matters.